Thank God. Or Odin. Thank Odin. Or Zeus, I guess. Thank someone. Hi and welcome, my name is the Nordic Dane, and today we're gonna talk about God of War Ragnarok, or Ragnarok in Danish, for PlayStation 5. So the God of War series actually goes all the way back to PlayStation 2 with the God of War trilogy, and I can just say I used to play those and I absolutely love them. The God of War games back on PlayStation 2 were some of my favorite games that I ever played back when I actually believe that I borrowed them from the library. They were absolutely amazing, so when they announced the God of War on a newer console, I was absolutely in need of buying that one. That was the first one that I played, and I absolutely enjoyed that one. So when they make Ragnarok as well, I was like, yes, more. I love it. Especially as a person from Denmark. The game is made by Santa Monica Studio, who also made the previous game as well as the old trilogy on PlayStation 2. Santa Monica Studio, however, is also owned by Sony, just so you know. But this is crazy because this is the 9th game in the series. So they had the trilogy and then they have the 2 newer ones, but they did have some spin-offs and smaller games, which all rounds up to being 9 games in total, which I think is absolutely insane. However, sadly enough, I've heard, at least the rumor says, that this is the last one of them. More about that later on. It's a single-player action-adventure game. I wouldn't call this open world necessarily, because it isn't fully open. It's more like you actually stepped into these worlds, and once you're there, it's not really an open world per se. It is kind of like you have to go this way in order to get over to this way. So not completely fully opened, which is kind of sad. I wish they had made that, but maybe, hopefully, if they make another game. When it comes to the story of this game, it takes place 3 years after the first one ended, which means that Atreus is now a little bit older. You also therefore get to play as him a little bit more. Atreus is now, I think, about 13 years old, and most of his attack revolves around using the bow, which honestly isn't that good of a weapon. Like, usually I love bows in any kind of game. I always go for an archer because I just love bows. But with this, it doesn't really feel like it's good. I honestly love the bow more in playing games like The Last of Us or something like that. Which is a huge deal because you do play as Atreus for like almost a quarter of the game. Without spoiling too much, it makes sense after you find out the whole story of the first one kind of revolves around him. So it kind of makes sense that the second game, which also revolves around him, you do actually get to play with him now that he's more mature. If you do remember, in the first one, it ended with I don't know how to say that in English. Fimbulwinter? Is that correct? Maybe? Fimbulvintern. Yeah, some of this is gonna be weird. It ended with you knowing that the Fimbulwinter is coming, which has then taken place over the last 3 years. Therefore, all the maps that you played in the first game are completely either locked or they have been completely redone because now there's been added snow to them. Like, for example, the lake that you are on in the first game, a lot of the time has been completely frozen, and now you can just walk on it. The main story about this actually just revolves around one single premise, and that premise is that Odin wants Atreus to come with him to Valhalla. That's almost the whole story summed up in one sentence. Kratos isn't happy with this, of course, and there's some arguments back and forth, and there's a huge plot twist in the middle of it that I absolutely did not see coming until it happened, and I absolutely loved it. And honestly, I don't feel like you do get a lot of those plot twists that you don't see coming anymore. I think that's why it was specifically significant to me and why I really appreciated it. But what's really sad about this story is that it kind of does end. And so I can understand why Sony is saying that there will be no more games. However, in the game, they do mention the fact that there are other gods, not just referring to the Greek gods, but maybe the Roman or Egyptian. And so in that way, the story could potentially live on. Honestly, I really do hope so, because I like the game and I like the way that they incorporate the actual myths into the actual game. When it comes to the visuals of this game, it has either a performance mode or a resolution mode. That means that you can choose between a dynamic 4K in 60 frames per second. Just for reference, that means that it's not 100% 4K, but it's like as close to 4K as it can be, and it goes in and out of 4K, if that makes sense. But at least you get it locked 60 frames per second, which is really nice having that in combat. Or you can choose the true 4K mode, which then gives you a locked 30 frames per second. However, if you do have 120 Hz, either TV or monitor, you have some other options as well, which includes a kind of middle option between the two. Basically where you could get 4K, but now you can get it with 40 frames per second, so a little bit better. When it comes to the loading times on this game, it's really slow loading into the game. However, I really do appreciate it the same way that they made loading screens in the first game, they took that and used it in the second game. When it's time to do a loading screen, what you do is you basically go through this Mystic Gateway and you are then at the Tree of Yggdrasil, basically just waiting until the new map has loaded and you can then walk through the other end of the Mystic Gateway. I absolutely love this way because what they do while it's loading, they have Mimir or Mima. They have him basically going through and telling all these stories, which makes it much more entertaining than just seeing a black screen with a loading icon. When it comes to the sound and the dialogue in this game, I would say that they actually have improved on the game. I feel like the dynamics between the people in the game and the dialogue itself has become much more interesting. In this game, you do also see more people because you do see some Asgardians, and so there are more different people that they can actually talk and engage with. And the way that they cast it was absolutely brilliant. I specifically really like their version of Odin. Because Odin is meant to always be smart, he's meant to always be cunning, he's meant to always have an ace in his sleeve, and you never know when he's gonna pull that. And that voice actor just really gets that, because you never know if he's just gonna flip or if he's just smart and cunning and just does not tell you what he already knows. And he just generally sounds like an Odin. Atreus, however, has also gotten much better. He was so super annoying in the first game, like really annoying, always saying the same things, always being in the way when you were fighting, and both of those have improved. Thank God. Or Odin. Thank Odin. Or Zeus, I guess? Thank someone. When it comes to the game mechanics, that's where I feel like there's been a huge improvement, because now you do have the options of different kind of weapons, and different kind of weapons give you different ways of fighting, which makes it really interesting with the enemies, because some of them are really easy to fight off with one specific weapon, whereas other enemies are more vulnerable to another kind of weapon. The game can be super difficult. I don't think it's one of the hardest ones that I've ever played. I played this on the hardest difficulty level available. There are 4 levels available, and then a 5th one once you finish the game. And so I played on the 4th level, so to say. And it wasn't that difficult. It was difficult in some moments, especially with some of the bosses. But overall, I wouldn't say it was difficult, just those specific moments. Overall, I would say that this game is much better than the first one. However, it's also very much of the same. It's some of the same maps, they've just been done a little bit differently. It's the same story that you're continuing. However, there's a lot of small details that they've just been better at with this game, which makes the overall experience much better. Overall, the biggest thing I would say is probably the fact that you get to play with Atreus. And honestly, I did not like it. I like the fact that we got to see his side of the story and we got to see him and have some dialogue with him. However, playing with him wasn't something that I enjoyed. If they were to make a 3rd game, however, I would still play that for sure, because the story is just that captivating, at least for me, and I really enjoyed being able to play a good game that takes place with the Scandinavian Norse mythology. Yeah, sure, Valhalla did have some, and it wasn't bad, but this definitely trumps it. So overall, I would give this 5 out of 6 Viking helmets. It is a really good game. It is a game, honestly. I don't think I could see myself doing the first one again, but I could see myself doing the second one again. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, please go and like the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. You can also go and follow me on Twitch. My handle is the Nordic Dane. And as always, vi ses.